Bulletproof Radio, a state of high performance.
I think there is a core nugget in what you're saying there. That is what's really happening. And in wanting, you go all the way back to early childhood, which made me really happy because a lot of the work that I do with entrepreneurs at 40 Years of Zen, this is my neuroscience thing. You go in for a brain upgrade to make your brain perform better, and you realize that a lot of the voice in your head, a lot of the things sucking energy are very old programming that you're not at all conscious of. And some of it's wanting, some of it's trauma. And you go in and there's states where you can edit this stuff. But you talk about some things that are really interesting that we only learned over the past few decades around mimetic theory and things like joint visual attention. What is joint visual attention? What is the role of early infant childhood in wanting stuff as adults?
Sure. I think the world's leading thinker on this is Dr. Andrew Metzoff at the University of Washington. And he runs a neuroscience and childhood development center at the university with his wife. And he's got crazy multi-million-dollar machines where he studies the electromagnetic field around infants' brains, right? We actually have a magnetic force.
An MEG.
Yeah, MEG. And I can't pronounce whatever it stands for, but it is very impressive. And he's been studying the brains of infants, and fascinating studies. And there's a couple of things to note here. One is how the role of imitation in children probably starts before the children are even born or the second that they're born. And to give you one example, the children of mothers who speak different languages come out of the womb quite literally crying in different ways because they're imitating the intonations of their mother's voice that they heard during the last trimester while they were in the womb. So the child of a Chinese woman will come out of the womb crying differently than the child of a German mother, because the Chinese is a highly tonal language.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So they immediately have already learned to imitate things like language and voice and intonation. Within minutes or hours, they perform what's called joint visual attention. And Metzoff has studied this extensively, where the child follows the gaze of a parent. In the studies, it was usually the mother. So if the mother looks at something, the child's eyes look at the mother's eyes, because pretty much baby just knows how to stare up into the mother's eyes, right? But the baby notices that the mother's eyes are looking at some object, okay, and immediately starts to learn that the baby should take an interest in that object too. Obviously, this is not a rational process, but that joint visual attention, the child takes an interest in an object because the mother had an interest in the object. So that right there is a little early indication of what might develop into mimetic desire as adults.
Isn't that paired with like a smile or some other indication that it's good versus bad? Because you look at a tiger, right, and you look at candy or whatever, and one of those is more attractive than the other. So they're reading the whole face, right?
They're reading the whole face, and all of the cues matter.
Oh, wait, hold on. They're not doing that anymore.
And the fascinating thing is they don't do this with a non-human. It has to be a human. So the same thing, if they're looking at a robot or they're looking at an animal, they don't gaze follow. It has to be a human. So Metzoff says that it seems like we come out of the womb recognizing that this creature is like me, even though they've never seen themselves before. They've never looked in a mirror. They somehow already sense this, that we're the same. And they only gaze follow with the mother. And this is fascinating because, if in Proust, in Marcel Proust, in his novels, by the way, I've never gotten through any of his books. It's extremely difficult to read.
Thank you Thank you. My wife loves Proust. I've never gotten through more than a chapter. I want to put him in a wood shredder. It's like the worst waste of paper ever, if I can just say that. But you might love them anyway.
No, I mean, Proust is one of those books that people like to say that they've read because you're supposed to have read it or something like that.
It's horrible.
Right? It's brutal. But I only know this because I did a ton of research for the book. In his novels, he always has this. He always takes note of a character's eyes and what the character is looking at. And then another character picks up on what that character is looking at, just like the babies do. So that this is one of the books that Girard said he sees mimetic desire all over the place. It almost seemed like Proust had some, implicit idea of kind of how we work, right? Lots of other studies that Metzoff did, and I think one of the other fascinating ones is within a matter of months, babies can read beneath the surface, the surface level. So they can not only imitate external things, facial expressions, language. If you stick out your tongue at a baby, it can stick out its tongue back at you. But they start reading beneath the surface actions and can seem to read desires or intentions. So in a famous study that he did, he took some adults, put them in a room with a bunch of toddlers, and he had the adults act like they were trying to basically do something, but they failed to basically do it. So when they left the toddlers alone in the room, is like pull the ends off a toy dumbbell or something like that. And when they left the toddlers alone in the room, they didn't imitate what the adults did. They imitated what they knew the adults were trying to do. And other studies have shown that the toddlers are able to read way beneath the surface actions and imitate basically the intentions or the desires. And Girard's hypothesis is that as adults, we just do this at a far more sophisticated level. What people say, what people show us they want, we can usually see right through them, right? And, this happens in sort of dating all the time, right? We can read beneath the surface. I think women are probably better at men doing this, frankly, right? Like read beneath the surface and intuit the intentions or the desires, no matter how hard we try to mask it.
That's why I like to have at least half my senior executive team be women. Sorry, men and women are different. It's kind of weird, but I believe that.
I do. It's just the principle of complementarity, right?
Yeah.
We make each other better. And I try to follow the same rule.